Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis. Today I'm going to focus on one of my favorite synth bands of all time, Yazoo, or Yaz as we say in the States. When I recently did my Depeche Mode episode, which you can find by clicking above if you haven't seen it, because I'm pretty proud of it, it put the idea in my head to do a Yazoo episode, because Vince Clarke, the principal songwriter of early Depeche Mode, founded Yazoo when he left Depeche Mode. Yazoo only put out 2 albums, but they were super influential. In fact, a lot of today's music owes a debt to Yazoo. So let's get into it. The band Yazoo can be seen in retrospect as a rebound relationship between Vince Clarke's 2 main loves, Depeche Mode and Erasure. After leaving Depeche Mode, Vince Clarke hooked up with local singer Alison Moyet. Vince only intended for her to sing 1 song, as proof to his record company that he deserved another deal. But when his record label and publishing company heard the results, they insisted the duo make more songs, and then an album, and Yazoo was born. Alison Moyet came up with the name Yazoo. She was a big fan of the American jazz label of the same name. Unfortunately, when Yazoo became popular, the label threatened to sue them, hence the abbreviated name in US and Canada of Yaz. So if I occasionally call them Yaz by accident, don't freak out. Doesn't matter what you call them, they're frickin' amazing. Before there was Adele, there was Alison Moyet. Every powerhouse British female singer of the last 35 years is standing on the shoulders of Alison Moyet. Blessed with a massive voice that's still capable of conveying even the subtlest of emotions, Alison Moyet proved the perfect singer for Yazoo. In August of 1982, the band released Upstairs at Eric's. It was produced by E.C. Radcliffe. The E in E.C. stands for Eric, and the title refers to how they had to record the album upstairs at producer Eric Radcliffe's home studio that was built especially for this album. Incidentally, this is the British release, hence the name Yazoo. If this were a US release, you would see just Yaz, Y-A-Z. It is on Mute Records, Vince's old record company with Depeche Mode. This album made it all the way to number 2 on the UK album charts, where it had to battle it out with things like the motion picture soundtrack to the movie Fame. It kicks off with Don't Go, one of the greatest dance songs of all time. Don't At Me. Don't Go was released as a single and made it top 5. Don't Go is the ultimate example of how Vince Clarke's lyrics are so simple, and yet the right singer can imbue them with an emotional gravitas that they're lacking. The next song, Two Pieces, is one of the sweetest sounding yet bittersweet songs in their entire canon, which is saying something. It's got that should have been on the Pretty in Pink soundtrack feel to it. At least the Breakfast Club soundtrack. Come on, maybe John Bender between the thighs scene? I don't know. The next song, Bad Connection, is Vince Clarke's idea of a Motown song. It's got some of that Mr. Postman charm, and it's the best telephone-themed song since Jim Croce's Operator. Sorry, New Edition. It's also one of the poppiest songs on the whole album. I Before E Except After C opens as a voice collage experiment that really didn't need to happen. It's basically nothing you hadn't heard years before from John and Yoko. Number 9, number 9, number 9. And it's really nothing more in retrospect than a sign of the computer age times in which it was conceived. When the ominous programmed music actually kicks in, you'll assume it'll turn into a really funky groove, and then it doesn't. The next song on here is Midnight. Alison Moyet is the perfect person to sell the lines. Well, all of this rain can wash away my tears, but nothing can replace all of those wasted years. In all of this, I tell you I have learnt. Playing with fire gets you burnt, and I'm still burning. Ooh, getting hot in here. Vince Clarke has had the best luck finding the perfect people to deliver his lyrics. Dave Gahan, Alison Moyet, Andy Bell. That's a murderer's row of stellar singers. In My Room, sure as hell ain't your daddy's in my room, assuming your daddy is Brian Wilson. This In My Room is a moody, minimalist synth song, with Alison singing the longing lyrics, while a disembodied male voice recites the Lord's Prayer. Okay, that sounds terrible, but trust me, the song is so much better than that sounded. Side 2 kicks off with Only You, one of Vince Clarke's most romantic songs, and one of my favorite songs on the album. It's also the very first song that they recorded together. To be honest, the entire side 2 is killer, and I can't think of a better song to kick it off. The lyrics are simplistic perfection. All I needed was the love you gave. All I needed for another day, and all I ever knew, only you. Vince had actually offered that song as a farewell present to Depeche Mode when he left, but they turned it down. But it was fucking Fletcher. Only You was released as a single with the B-side Situation and ended up reaching number 2 in the UK charts. As I said earlier, this is the British version of the album. Situation was released on the US version of the album, where Situation was released as a single, and it made it up to number 73 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts. Situation is an amazing, amazing song. You may know it by the refrain of move out, don't mess around, move out, you bring me down, move out. How you get about? Don't make a sound, just move out. Those are some fucking lyrics. I grew up with the US version of the album, but I'm a sucker for hearing the album the way that the artist intended. So the British version is the go-to for me. After Only You, we have Goodbye 70s. And the lyrics are exactly what you would think from the title. Welcome 1980s. Fuck you 1970s. But the execution is brilliant. And it's another candidate for my favorite song on this album, of which I have several. It's my favorite dance track on the album, and I've always loved how Alison's vocals have a little extra attitude and are pretty harsh, and her delivery of these lines is just delicious. Tuesday may be the best underknown song by Yazoo, which is saying something. It's all about a woman of 30 who escapes her claustrophobic family life. You'll find the song's chorus, pack up and drive away, away, pack up and drive away, stuck in your head long after you've listened to the album. And you will not mind it. Tuesday is on the original UK cut of the album, and unfortunately it was the song that was cut from the US version to accommodate the inclusion of Situation. But I'll put the link below to the song because it's so beautiful and I really want you to hear it. How Winter Kills is the most foreboding song on the album. It's a badass dirge that somehow wouldn't be out of place as the soundtrack to either a love scene or a murder. The sparse lyrics are some of the most poetic on the entire album, and lines like, "You tear at me searching for weaker seams," will send a chill up your spine. Okay, I clearly misspoke earlier. Album closer, Bring Your Love Down, didn't I? Is the best dance song on this album. But that's the thing about this album. The whole damn thing is such a scorcher that you'd be hard-pressed to find the best dance floor filler on this album. Here's something you might not know about Didn't I Bring Your Love Down. This dance-tastic track was written by Alison Moyet, not Vince Clarke, and it's one of their best. Alison wrote 4 of the songs on this album, and they're all great, and she was very much an equal creative partner in this band. In July of 1983, the band released You and Me Both. The out-of-focus Warring Dalmatians photo was chosen by Alison Moyet herself. She felt it reflected the acrimony within the band. By this time, Vince had already decided to leave the band. He told Alison he wanted to leave, but his music publisher talked him out of it. He had already left Depeche Mode after just one record, and if he also left Yazoo after one record, his music publisher convinced him it would be career suicide. And let's face it, the publisher just wanted a little more of that cheddar coming in. You don't hop off a money train. You ask Wesley Snipes, he'll tell you the same. By the time this album came out, the band was no more. But what a fucking album. The recording of this album was pretty isolating for the band. Vince would come down to the studio in the morning and lay down the music. Alison would come down to the studio in the evenings and lay down the vocals. This album, which made it all the way to number 1 on the UK album charts, even more than Upstairs at Eric's, proves that Yazoo was a band of 2 equally creative minds. They both contributed to the songwriting, and they each enhanced what the other person brought to the table. From the first few notes of lead track Nobody's Diary, it is clear that Yazoo are back, and the songwriting has taken a leap forward. This track was written by Alison Moyet, and has some of the best lyrics of any Yazoo song. It's all about her character wanting to keep a relationship going, and not wanting to wind up being nothing more than a page in her ex-lover's diary. But he wants to turn the page on Alison fucking Moyet. You don't turn the page on Alison Moyet. She tells you when to turn the page. Softly Over is one of my all-time favorite Yazoo songs. It's another underrated gem. Seriously, go up to the search. You know what? Fuck that. I'm going to put the track in the description below. Check out Softly Over and all the other underrated Yazoo tracks I'm going to put in the description. They're some of the most beautiful, heartbreaking songs ever. Songs like Softly Over should make you feel sad, but they don't. That's the genius of their music. It's another Vince song using his patented formula. Catchy music, coupled with simple yet evocative, repetitive lyrics. And it succeeds as always. Okay, remember how I said that side 2 off Upstairs at Eric's was my side? Well, side 1 is my side off of this one. There's no let up. Sweet Thing is a killer track. Never has a dance track rocked so hard. Another Alison Moyet written track. It's got a little electronic flute flourish that brightens the track, and fake drums that produce real rhythm, which turn the song into an alt-disco throwdown. And Alison's vocal performance is off the charts. It's incendiary. Incendiary. The next song is Mr. Blue. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached my favorite song on the album. Mr. Blue has irresistibly somber music, matched with Vince Clarke's genius lyrics, which include what is easily my favorite Vince penned chorus. I'm Mr. Blue. I'm here to stay with you. And no matter what you do, when you're lonely, I'll be lonely too. The audio flip side to ELO's Mr. Blue Sky. Yazoo's Mr. Blue is a much more realistic song/character. And between the two, Mr. Blue is the one you'd want by your side on the regular. Fuck off, Mr. Blue Sky. Sometimes I want to be sad. Good Times is another Alison Moyet track, and a fantastic one at that, with infectious musical hooks and a killer chorus. It also may be her most soulful vocals on the album. And that is tough to say given her work on every other song on this album. But she's a belter, and she really belts this one out. Once you hear the first few notes of Walk Away From Love, you'll be like, oh right, this is the guy from Depeche Mode. It's got that same first Depeche Mode album feel and production to it, which is why it's a little surprising that it's on their second album and not their first. This track is a sensuous upbeat number that's built into an all-time great by Alison's layered vocals. Ode to Boy is another Alison Moyet song that's short on musical production, but succeeds due to another winning vocal performance. Her vocals are perfection as usual. Unmarked is a very dark anti-war song from Vince that doesn't have a proper chorus, yet whose vocalizations, whoa, 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 somehow work given the cadence of the song. Anyone is one of the saddest songs on the album. Hello, fellow young people. Do you like goth? And it finds Alison seeking solace with someone that she needs to close her eyes to see. Dark and sexy. Happy People is as interesting a track as REM's Shiny Happy People was annoying. It's also the only Yazoo song that features Vince Clarke on lead vocals. Alison tried in vain a couple of times to record it, but since she was feeling anything but happy at the time, she refused to sing on it. End On finishes the album on a very 1980s note, production-wise. I can almost see Alison emerging from a smoke machine when I hear this track. It's a very downbeat song about her character saying goodbye to someone at a funeral who's already dead. And I get the impression that the dead person was suffering from a disease, and Alison's character is happy that that person killed themselves before the disease could kill them. Hot take. End On brings the curtain down on the album on a very dour note. It also puts the Alison to Vince songwriting ratio at 6-5. A definite turnabout from the debut album, where Vince wrote 7 songs and Alison wrote 4, which is further proof that the normally control-minded Vince already had one foot out the door. Vince and Alison actually reformed in 2008 for a short tour, and again in 2011 for Mute Records' Short Circuit Festival. But it appears now that they'll never join forces again. I consider us very lucky, given the volatility of their lives during the short period they were together, that we even got the 2 albums we got from them. Following the breakup of Yazoo, Alison Moyet began a very successful 30-year solo career. Vince Clarke formed the short-lived band The Alliance with Eric Radcliffe, the producer of Upstairs at Eric's. He and Eric hired Fergal Sharkey, and they had a hit with Never Never, but it wasn't long after that he found his forever band in Erasure with Andy Bell, who are still making music today. That's it for this week on Pop Culture Graveyard. I really hope you enjoyed this week's episode on Yazoo. If you did, let me know in the comments. If you didn't, I don't know. I will see you next week with a lot more cool stuff.